Hi. So much controversy around Prashant Bhushan and the Supreme Court holding him in contempt, finding him guilty of contempt. Now let's just try and understand what is it, because often many people wonder, is it all right for us to comment on a Supreme Court order? Can we criticize it? Can we criticize a sitting court judge, Supreme Court or otherwise? Can we criticize something which may be personal about him or professional about him? Where exactly do we draw the line? What is it that I say about anything related to a court that could be considered as contempt? First, let us try and understand what is the contempt law and how is contempt really defined. Well, under section 2 of the Contempt of Court Act, there are two kinds of contempt, civil and criminal. The civil one is actually pretty simple. It means willful disobedience to any judgment, any decree, direction, order, or other process of a court, or a willful breach of an undertaking that you may have given to the court. So if you willfully disobey the court order, knowingly do that, then you can be held in civil contempt. The criminal one is actually a little bit more complicated and elaborate. This criminal contempt means publication by saying or writing, even visual imagery and signs, of any matter or the doing of any other act which scandalizes or tends to scandalize or lowers or tends to lower the authority of the court is criminal contempt. Similarly, contempt which prejudices or interferes or tends to interfere with the due process of judiciary can be considered as criminal contempt, or interference or tend to interfering with or obstructing justice in any way can also be held in contempt. Let's see some different kinds of examples. One of the very famous examples is that of Justice Karnan, a sitting judge who sentenced the then Chief Justice of India, Justice Kehar, and several other Supreme Court judges to imprisonment, was then held in contempt by the Supreme Court. He himself, Justice Karnan himself, was imprisoned for 6 months in this case. Now, that's one kind of example. Another one was that of Justice Kadzu. Justice Kadzu wrote a Facebook post where he very openly and strongly criticized Supreme Court judges, and he was criticizing them in reference to some verdict that had been given, and that was then taken up by the Supreme Court. And proceedings were initiated against him. Although Justice Kadzu apologized, he tendered an unconditional apology, and that's where the matter really ended. Another more recent case actually was that of a CBI Additional Director, Nageshwara Rao. Now, the CBI had transferred the probe head of the Muzaffarpur case, a case that the Supreme Court itself was monitoring, and the Supreme Court got really upset about it. So they held Nageshwar Rao and some other officials in contempt, and they told Mr. Rao to go and sit in one corner of the courtroom for an entire day. That was his punishment. So there are various such examples that one can actually talk about to help us understand contempt and contempt of court. I want to also tell you what the Supreme Court itself has said in the past about contempt. There was one case of S. Mugolkar versus Unknown. This is a 1978 case where the Supreme Court said and held that the judiciary cannot be immune from fair criticism, and contempt action is to be used only when there is an obvious misstatement within malicious intent. If your intent is is malicious to bring down the public confidence in courts or seek to influence the courts. In this judgment, the then Chief Justice opined that at times the judiciary adopts a magnanimously charitable approach, even though the comment that may have been made would be extremely uncharitable and it would be an unfair criticism. But if somebody has done that criticism out of interest and concern for improvement, then the Supreme Court should be magnanimous enough to just let it go, and they often do that. The other one was about a person who had been a journalist who had been held in contempt for a post on Facebook, and this was an order actually that was passed by the Punjab and Haryana High Court that had found this journalist guilty of contempt. But then the Supreme Court said that criticism on Facebook cannot be considered as contempt. So here are two other examples where the Supreme Court at that point of time held a different kind of view. Suffice to say, you can criticize a judgment if you don't have a malicious intent to simply destroy the dignity or the integrity of the court. You can criticize a judge, provided you're doing, talking about the judge in his personal capacity and not joining that dot with a judgment that may have been given by that person. In fact, Mr. Sanjay Hegde, a notable lawyer, actually on my show gave a very interesting example, and he said, well, Tanvi, you can criticize Justice Sanjay Hegde by saying that, well, he's a drunkard and he drinks a lot. But if you say that Justice Sanjay Hegde, who is a drunkard, quashed the prohibition order, then you are attributing a motive to that order and questioning his intent. That could be contempt, that could be problematic. So I hope this helps you also understand what contempt really is, irrespective of what happens in the Prashant Bhushan case. It's important for all of us to also understand just what is going on.